The wedding was held in low orbit above Illyria's central moon, because nothing says eternal commitment like exchanging vows while spinning at 1,700 kilometers per hour. Outside the massive observatory dome, starfields stretched in every direction like diamond dust on velvet, and the gas giant Varel pulsed with pink storms below. Theo Halberg adjusted his ceremonial collar for the fifth time in 30 seconds. It itched like guilt, or like synthetic silk designed by someone who hated human skin. "You look like you're being strangled by a priest," whispered the best man, who was technically a peacekeeping AI housed in a floating cube. His name was Myrtle, and he glowed blue when smug. He was always blue. "I look diplomatic," Theo muttered back, squinting at his reflection in the translucent wall, which is the same as terrified, but with better posture. On the Illyrian side of the chamber, the atmosphere shimmered, literally. The Illyrians bent light around themselves as a cultural norm, an optical expression of modesty and hierarchy. Only Princess Alidra stood in full clarity. She was breathtaking in that surreal, uncanny way of aliens who'd studied humanity too hard and tried to approximate beauty by committee. Her face was human enough. Her long ears arched like crescent blades, ivory pale and faintly translucent. Her irises danced with shifting constellations. Her expression, always calm in public, gave away nothing. Theo, meanwhile, was 90% anxiety and 10% deodorant. He was Earth's official cultural liaison, which meant he got paid to explain memes to alien diplomats and not accidentally trigger wars with idioms like break a leg. He wasn't supposed to fall in love. He certainly wasn't supposed to propose. But he had. And now here he was, an earthling linguist marrying a psionic alien royal whose ancestors used to communicate by altering gravity fields. The ceremony began with a chorus of Illyrian harmonics, sonic structures that rearranged themselves in the air into glowing fractals. Theo had practiced this part. He reached into his robe, pulled out the ceremonial orb, which suspiciously resembled a space egg, and placed it in Aledra's palm. She pressed it to her forehead, whispered something in a language that had no vowels, and then offered her hand. Their fingers touched. A pulse went through Theo's mind. Not painful, not invasive, just a sense of someone brushing against his memories. Curious. He was supposed to let her in. That was part of it. The Illyrian soul-binding ritual was emotional nudity, shared memories, exposed thoughts. He thought about his childhood, spilled cereal, his mother's hands, cartoons at dawn. He thought about Aledra in the observation garden last month, laughing at his impression of a diplomatic ferret. She smiled. Not politely, but actually smiled. The light around her dimmed, just slightly. That meant trust. "Is it working?" he asked out loud, forgetting the telepathic part. "Yes," Aledra said, also out loud, which caused 3 nearby ministers to flinch. Illyrians never used their voices unless something was either very serious or very funny. Her voice sounded like a violin played underwater. The rest of the ritual proceeded as expected. Theo nearly dropped the flame crystal during the Unity ignition, but recovered with an exaggerated bow that got an actual chuckle from Aledra's brother, who otherwise looked like an angry sculpture. When the final phase came, an ethereal veil of compressed photons descending over them like a blessing, he leaned close and whispered, "So, after this, is there a honeymoon suite or just a diplomatic holding cell with better pillows?" She tilted her head. "Both." The laughter in his chest surprised him. So did hers. When they kissed, first contact, lips to lips, worlds to worlds, the entire chamber stilled. Then the dome flickered. Theo blinked. It wasn't malfunction, it was tradition. Illyrian weddings ended with a moment of suspended perception, where light and sound slowed. Symbolically, it represented time pausing for love. In practice, it felt like kissing someone in a jellyfish screensaver. After the ceremony, they were escorted to their private quarters, a gravity-neutral chamber lined with reactive crystal walls that shifted color based on emotional tone. The walls were currently pulsing lavender, peaceful, optimistic. Theo took off the robe and flopped backward onto a hovering sleep pad that adjusted to his mass with a soft whoomp. "Okay," he exhaled, arms spread. "We did it. Galactic peace achieved. 2 species saved from millennia of awkward small talk. Mission accomplished. Aledra remained standing, her hands folded. There's something else. He sat up slowly. Please don't say annulment. I must show you who I am. Truly. He blinked. Babe, I've seen your royal paperwork, your military training files, your hover ballet rehearsal footage. No, she interrupted gently. Not the form you know. My true form. Theo's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Is this the Illyrian version of makeup removal, or? She didn't laugh this time. Instead, she exhaled, and the change began. Her skin rippled like disturbed water. The tone deepened into a color he didn't have a name for, something between silver and memory. Her arms elongated by just a few centimeters, fingers tapering into points that shimmered at the tips. Her face remained structurally human, but more angular now, like someone had edited her symmetry just a little too perfectly. Most striking were her ears, already long, now unfurling wider, with delicate vein-like threads glowing along their edges like neural lace. Her eyes lost their pupils entirely. They became small galaxies. He stared, not with fear, not with revulsion, with the stunned awe of a child watching a comet pass. You don't have to say anything, she said, voice echoing like a duet sung by a single soul. I will return to the other form if... No, no, Theo interrupted. Hold on, He stood, reached for her hand. You look like an ancient moon goddess designed by someone on psychedelics, and I mean that in the hottest, most reverent way possible. She blinked, clearly uncertain whether to be flattered or concerned. I'm serious, he said. You're beautiful, like, objectively. If Da Vinci saw you, he'd retire early and open a noodle shop out of shame. That made her laugh, a real laugh. It echoed in the walls, turning lavender into deep blue. Theo smiled. So, what now? She stepped closer. Now, husband of Earth, we begin. Theo woke up to find the walls breathing, not metaphorically. The crystal panels of their chamber pulsed gently in and out, like the rhythmic expansion of lungs. The color had shifted to a shimmering gradient between coral and maroon. Apparently the Illyrian equivalent of good morning, you survived interspecies intimacy. He squinted blearily, then realized that something was wrapped around his foot. It was Aledra's hair. Her true form, now unmasked, came with a few unexpected upgrades. Her hair, it turned out, had slight prehensile qualities. Not enough to strangle anyone, probably, but enough to hold on to him like a clingy vine with trust issues. Love, he murmured. Your hair's either spooning me or trying to draft me into its cult. She stirred, her eyes flickering open. They were dimmer now, like night skies just before a meteor shower. Apologies, reflex. My species bonds through tactile memory anchoring in sleep. Theo stretched, prying a lock of luminous hair from his ankle. Earth's version of that is stealing the blanket. I think I prefer yours. She sat up and the chamber walls darkened slightly in response. Theo still hadn't gotten used to the idea that every wall around him was a kind of emotional mood ring with AI capabilities. He'd accidentally caused a diplomatic incident the day before by sighing too loudly and turning an entire hallway red-orange, which apparently translated to contemptuous lust. They'd barely gotten dressed. Well, Theo had dressed. Aledra simply adjusted her skin's reflectivity when the chamber's intercom lit up. Ambassador Halberg, there is an urgent communique from the Earth Embassy, intoned a voice that sounded like Morgan Freeman if he'd grown up inside a subwoofer. Theo groaned. It's been 8 hours. Can I enjoy one interstellar honeymoon without my home planet panic calling me like a clingy ex? He palmed the comms panel and blinked as a grainy hollow projection formed above it. Ambassador Kerwin's face appeared, pale and pinched like he'd just swallowed a lemon made of bureaucracy. We have a situation, Kerwin began. Good morning to you too, Theo muttered. Did you lose another embassy cat? Kerwin didn't blink. Images of your bride's alternate form have been leaked. Aledra stood perfectly still. Only the tips of her ears twitched, which Theo had learned meant extreme internal distress or mild interest in jazz. Leaked. That word hadn't lost its potency even in a galaxy of neural clouds and privacy encryption based on quantum logic knots. Theo swallowed. Define leaked. They're on every interstellar subchannel. Hashtags trending include Shush Starlight Scandal, Shush Shush Tentacle Truth, and God Help Us, Glow Up. Alidra blinked slowly. Is that a term of insult or admiration? Theo rubbed his face. In this case, both, Kerwin continued. Earth media is spinning this as deception. Some senators are calling it an interstellar catfish situation. That's offensive on at least 3 levels, Theo snapped, and scientifically inaccurate. Perception matters, Kerwin said. Your marriage was supposed to symbolize transparency and trust. Now half of the Terranet thinks you married an exotic shapeshifter with ulterior motives. Well, technically I did, Theo shrugged, but we were very upfront about it, just privately. Kerwin pinched the bridge of his nose. We need damage control. Now. After the call ended, silence settled over them like static. Theo turned to Alidra. We can spin this, do an interview, humanize it. She hesitated. Illyrians do not perform vulnerability for approval. Our truths are sacred. He nodded. And Earthlings will meme a tragedy within 12 minutes and turn it into a limited-run t-shirt line. So, compromise? By the end of the day, they were seated in a broadcast chamber aboard a diplomatic vessel parked just outside the Illyrian light barrier. The studio was a bizarre hybrid of alien crystal architecture and human camera tech, including a production AI that insisted on adjusting Theo's hair every 0.6 seconds. The interviewer, a half-human, half-synthetic personality named Lyra Vox, hovered in a plasma chair, blinking with artificial empathy. So, Lyra began, when did you first realize your wife had a second form? Theo glanced at Alidra. Roughly 2 minutes after I said, I do. Which is fair because on Earth, most people wait at least a few weeks before removing their metaphorical mass. So I still consider myself ahead of the curve. Alidra added, I trusted him with my true self, as is customary in my culture. On Illyria, this is the highest form of love. On Earth, it apparently triggers hashtags. Lyra smiled. What would you say to those who claim the marriage was a deception? Theo leaned forward. If love means only loving what's easy to understand, it's not love, it's preference. Alidra's not hiding anything. She just has more dimensions than most people can process without a neural update. The segment ended with a kiss. Carefully staged, of course, but very real. Alidra glowed softly. Theo grinned. The production AI flickered a heart shape into the air behind them before being sternly corrected by a cultural liaison. Afterward, they returned to their chamber. The walls were now a serene aquamarine. Do you think it worked? Alidra asked. Theo lay back on the sleep pad. I think half the galaxy ships us, and the other half thinks I've been brainwashed by an alien goddess. Which honestly, fair. She smiled, this time without restraint. Perhaps we are both being transformed. He reached out, entwining his fingers with hers. Let them talk. You're worth every scandal. The walls pulsed gently. Somewhere across the stars, a meme was born. The first explosion wasn't loud. It was elegant. A ripple in the space-time insulation layer just outside the Illyrian Ministry of Union. It folded inward like a petal collapsing in zero gravity and then blinked out. No shockwave, just absence. That's how Illyrian assassins preferred to operate. Quietly, efficiently, with a touch of theatrical existentialism. Theo was 3 bites into a breakfast sphere, blue, gelatinous, inexplicably grape-flavored, when his wrist link lit up crimson and began screaming in Morse code. You have an assassination alert, Myrtle intoned from the hallway, voice chipper. Would you like to ignore it for another 5 minutes or activate immediate survival protocols? Theo froze mid-chew. Is that a real question? No, Myrtle said. Initiating coward protocol. The breakfast sphere was replaced instantly by a portable shielding dome that snapped down around Theo with a hiss of negative pressure and a polite chime that sounded like an elevator arriving in hell. Outside, a soft hum rose, the sound of nearby defense systems charging with psionic energy. I was just starting to enjoy this marriage, Theo muttered, peeking out from under the edge of the dome. We had one whole scandal-free day. I was even starting to understand the bidet settings. Alidra stepped into the chamber, calm as a cat in a sunbeam. Her eyes glowed with that low-level glimmer that meant either psychic communication or, as Theo had learned, intense annoyance. "There's been an intrusion," she said. "The Royal Psi Guard neutralized 2 shapeshifters near the Union Corps. The third escaped. Are they after you or me?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for her ceremonial blade, an elegant curve of bioluminescent alloy, and said, "Yes." Theo groaned. "I didn't even insult anyone this week, unless that plant ambassador counts. But he did look like a sentient pickle." Myrtle's cube hovered closer. "Sensors show one life form moving through unauthorized zones at subquantum speed. That's either a ninja or a glitch in our rendering software. Shall I prepare for either?" Elidra nodded once. "Activate phase merge protocol." Theo blinked. "Wait, what's phase merge protocol?" Myrtle chimed cheerfully. "It's like hide and seek, but you become temporarily non-corporeal and hope your molecules remember where to go." Before Theo could argue, the floor opened beneath them. Not fell open, unfolded. Illyrian architecture didn't do doors or stairwells. It preferred topological poetry, shapes that realigned themselves with the user's intent. The floor shifted, spiraling into a slide of smooth plasma glass, and deposited them inside a sleek chamber, humming with predictive AI. "This is the heart room," Eledra said, as Theo landed on his back like a sack of wet groceries. "It's keyed to my bioelectric signature. No unauthorized being can enter." "Great," Theo wheezed. "Can it also make me a coffee or at least a dignity smoothie?" The room pulsed in response and ejected a hot beverage from a nearby wall. It was purple and bubbling. Theo eyed it suspiciously. "This won't give me visions of my ancestors again, right? Last time I drank something from your planet, I spent 3 hours reliving the feelings of a sentient mist." "Drink slowly this time," Elidra advised. Outside, alarms flared, a low harmonic tone that made Theo's bones itch. A silhouette appeared in the far corridor, tall, humanoid, wearing the shifting armor of the dissenter caste. Theo had read about them, radical traditionalists, believers in Illyrian purity, and apparently big fans of blowing up diplomatic unions. Elidra raised her hand. The corridor twisted sideways, like a funhouse mirror having an identity crisis. The assassin stumbled but recovered, activating a blade that phased in and out of visibility. "I've got this," she said. "You stay here and keep breathing." Theo stood shakily. "No offense, but I'm not great at just waiting while you go get space stabbed. Your bravery is noted. Your usefulness in combat is not," he sighed. "Fine, but if I die in a metaphorical explosion of trauma while hiding, I'm haunting someone. Probably Myrtle." "I'm flattered," said Myrtle. "I've always wanted a ghost with poor upper body strength." Elidra stepped into the corridor, her body shifting fluidly into her combat form, limbs lengthening, ears folding into aerodynamic arcs, skin turning translucent and hardening like refracted glass. The corridor dimmed, acknowledging her authority. The assassin hissed something in a dialect Theo couldn't understand, but the intent was clear. She answered with light. Their battle was more dance than fight. Blades hissed and sparked against space itself. Eledra twisted physics, bending geometry like origami. Theo watched helplessly as sparks rained down from the ceiling, and the walls glitched from fear to fury red. But then something changed. The assassin hesitated. Their weapon dipped. Eledra had dropped her defenses. Her form shimmered down into its most vulnerable version, her core self, eyes wide, glowing softly. "I love him," she said. "That's why I changed. That's why I let go of the mask. If you still serve purity, then strike me down for it." The assassin didn't move. Theo held his breath. Then the weapon dropped to the floor with a clatter that sounded far too human. The figure pulled off its helmet. Female. Illyrian. Eyes shining with tears that refracted into dozens of tiny moons. "I thought you'd betrayed us," she whispered. "But you've become more Illyrian than we ever were." Elidra stepped forward, touched her forehead to the woman's. A gesture of forgiveness, of memory transfer. Theo watched the light pass between them like shared breath. Later, after the guards had escorted the would-be assassin away, Theo and Eledra sat back in the heart room, sipping more purple tea. So, Theo said slowly, next time someone tries to kill us, can we just throw a party instead? Maybe confuse them with karaoke? Eledra gave him a rare smile. Only if you promise never to sing Earth opera again. I regret nothing, he said. My falsetto is a gift to the stars. She laughed and the room turned gold. Theo woke up with a holographic pigeon tapping against his window. That wouldn't have been strange if he were on Earth. But he wasn't. He was on Illyria, where pigeons had been extinct for 4,000 years and windows were optional. Message for Ambassador Halberg, the bird chirped in perfect BBC English. Please confirm that you are not deceased. He groaned, waved it off, and muttered, one assassination attempt and suddenly everyone's worried about my pulse. The pigeon dissolved mid-squawk, replaced by a floating orb bearing the seal of the Galactic Coalition. Myrtle's face appeared in the projection, looking as smug as a sentient cube could. You've been summoned, Myrtle said. The Grand Council of Unity wants answers, preferably ones that don't involve puns. Theo rubbed his face. Do they at least provide snacks? Last time I gave a speech, I nearly passed out from diplomatic blood sugar. They're Illyrians, Theo. They meditate on nutrient vapor. Great, he muttered, a trial powered by scented air. Eledra entered the room silently, wearing a ceremonial shimmer that looked like a combination of silk and nebulae. Her ears were still slightly back, a sign of discomfort, but her posture was iron. Theo stood and fumbled with the collar of his ambassador's coat. I swear this thing gets tighter every day, he mumbled. It conforms to your anxiety levels, Eledra said without looking at him. Well, that explains a lot. The council chamber wasn't built so much as sung into existence. Illyrian architecture responded to emotional resonance, which meant the structure often reflected the mood of its inhabitants. Today, the ceiling resembled a cloudy aquarium with constellations swimming lazily through it. The council members, tall, elongated beings with eyes like dark matter, sat in floating rings of transparent glass. A voice rang out from all directions at once. We summon the bonded pair to answer a single question. Has the union brought stability or erosion? Theo stepped forward. His voice cracked. Would yes be an acceptable answer? A polite ripple of psychic disapproval passed through the room. Eledra took over. The attempt on our lives was not the result of failure. It was the result of change. And resistance to change is not new. It is expected. The union is not eroding our people. It is evolving them. Theo nodded furiously. And may I just add, on behalf of Earth, that marriage is already a high-risk diplomatic event, even without espionage and attempted vaporization. One of the counselors turned toward him. Ambassador, are you implying your planet finds bonding inherently volatile? Oh, absolutely, Theo said. Statistically speaking, marriage on Earth is about as stable as a plutonium piñata. But we keep doing it, because it means something. A flicker of motion. Another counselor leaned forward. You make light of sacred things. Theo took a breath. No, I make light with sacred things. Humor is how humans metabolize the unbearable. And love, especially the kind that breaks cultural boundaries, is unbearably important. A pause. One of the counselor's eyes changed color. Eledra stepped beside him, gently reaching out to touch his hand in front of the entire chamber. The act, so small, triggered a wave of psychic heat across the room. Illyrians felt affection like echoes. Touch radiated history. The moment she touched him, the air shimmered with memory. The night she showed him her true form, the panic in his breath, the awe in his eyes, the decision not to run. A silent voice filled the room. He stayed. Another followed. He chose. And another. He laughed. Theo blinked. Was that a compliment or a judgment? Unclear, Myrtle whispered in his earpiece. But you're still breathing, so take the win. After a long silence, the central ring of the council glowed blue. The union will remain, but visibility is now required. You will attend the interworld broadcast of understanding. Share your truth with the galaxy. Theo turned to Eledra. Are they serious? A broadcast? Think of it as universal reality TV, she said, but with higher stakes and fewer dramatic zooms. He sighed. If I'm going to be galactic famous, I want theme music, and maybe a decent wardrobe upgrade. We'll get you something that doesn't wrinkle when you panic. Back on their diplomatic cruiser, Theo paced the comm studio. Dozens of floating cameras orbited them. Behind the scenes, the director, an eight-arm being named Solbor, clacked its mandibles and demanded more emotional microbeats. Do you want sincerity or interpretive dance? Theo asked. Yes, Solbor hissed. Eledra placed a hand on his shoulder. We speak together. You are not alone. Neither are you, he said, which is lucky because I still can't pronounce your middle name. She smiled. Few can. It's telepathic. When the signal went live, they began. Eledra spoke of transparency, of the fear she'd carried, of what it meant to reveal herself not just to one person, but to billions. Theo followed with stories, small, human stories, about how he used to fake accents to get out of school presentations, about how his mother always said that love wasn't about understanding someone, but about staying anyway. He ended with, she didn't hide her form. She just waited for the right person to see it. The feed went silent, and then lit up. Not with hate, not with fear, but with questions, with hope, with curiosity. One message from a child on Androx 4 simply read, Can I look like her too someday? Theo teared up. Eledra's ears shimmered with soft blue. Afterward, as the feed ended and the lights powered down, Myrtle floated in. You've just emotionally destabilized 4-star systems and increased interspecies romance searches by 70%. Do we get royalties? Theo asked. Number, but you've got a fan club now. Eledra kissed his cheek. How do you feel, my starlight diplomat? He grinned, terrified, exhausted, but mostly really, really married. And somewhere across the galaxy, another mask fell. Theo stood in front of a classroom of floating children and tried to remember which ones were allergic to metaphors. It had been a year since the broadcast that changed everything, and he was now, by some cruel twist of galactic bureaucracy, a tenured interspecies cultural educator. Okay, class, he said, holding up a chalkboard that wasn't actually made of chalk or a board. Today we're discussing Earth humor and why sarcasm isn't a viable form of diplomacy, even though I personally tried. One student, a translucent blob named Pip, raised 3 pseudopods. Yes, Pip? If sarcasm isn't diplomacy, Pip oozed politely, why did you tell the Andromedan Chancellor, great plan, very peaceful, right before she launched 4 missiles? Theo sighed. Because I was tired and emotionally overcooked. That wasn't diplomacy. That was passive-aggressive survival mode. Laughter rippled through the room. Eledra watched from the doorway, arms crossed, a subtle glow humming across her shoulders. She was still a princess, still a leader, but now, also, a person. Not an image, not a mask. After class, they walked together through the corridor that pulsed a soft jade green. Affection and intellectual curiosity, according to Illyrian mood mapping. Outside, orbiting above the fusion-lit gardens of the newly inaugurated Unity campus, fleets of ships passed in formation, not military, educational, exchanges, students, collaboration vessels, science without warheads, culture without conquest. You know, Theo said, adjusting his translator pin, I still don't understand why that one diplomat keeps calling me the sacred idiot. He means it affectionately, Eledra replied. Theo squinted. How affectionately? Enough to name a commemorative dessert after you. It's gelatinous and mildly unstable. He grinned. So basically, me in food form. They entered the Harmony Atrium, a massive domed space where light bent in intentional waves to calm neural activity. Inside, a group of young Illyrian transforms were waiting. They were the first generation born after the Union, their forms shifting unpredictably, some with Earth-style limbs, some glowing from within, some still uncertain of what shape they wanted to be. One little girl stepped forward. She looked mostly human, save for her ears. Long like Eledra's, but tipped with soft feathers that shimmered when she was happy. Ambassador Theo, she said shyly, is it true you cried the first time you saw the inside of an Illyrian bathroom? He blinked. Listen, your plumbing has tentacles. It wasn't fear, it was awe. Dignified awe. The kids laughed. Eledra knelt and touched the girl's shoulder. This is your world now, she said. You will not need to wear illusions unless you choose them. Theo added, but if you do wear illusions, pick something with capes. Capes are universally cool. That night they returned to their quarters, no longer in the diplomatic wing, but in a modest habitat cube overlooking the gardens. Theo made tea. Alidra meditated by projecting calming fractals onto the ceiling. I used to think the hardest part of this marriage would be cultural, Theo said. Turns out it was just folding your ceremonial robes without offending anyone. You've adapted, she replied. Did I? Or did I just learn to apologize more creatively? She turned toward him. You've changed, Theo. He raised a brow. You mean my haircut? No, she said softly. You used to be afraid of being insignificant. Now you understand what it means to be part of something large. Not less than yourself, but more. He sipped his tea and smiled. You make it sound noble. I just stopped trying to impress everyone and started loving them instead. Outside, a wave of stars passed across the sky, an orbital storm of biosatellites sinking in real time. From their window, the sky looked like it was laughing. The next morning, they stood before a gathering of delegates from 50 worlds. The Interworld Council had requested a closing statement on the first year of union. Theo had written something poetic, something metaphorical, then decided to throw it away. We started this journey not knowing what we were doing, he told the crowd. Honestly, I still don't. I married someone whose nervous system could hack a moon, and in return, she married someone who once accidentally sent an intergalactic treaty to a cooking forum. But we stayed. We saw each other, and we kept choosing each other. Elidra took his hand. Unity is not sameness. It is choosing to remain curious, choosing to see, choosing to stay. A long silence, then applause, not clapping, but the Illyrian wave song of resonance, layered tones that echoed joy, agreement, gratitude. Later, back in their quarters, Alidra looked out at the sky. Do you think the galaxy is ready? Theo walked up behind her. Number, but I think it's willing. She turned. And us? He kissed her. We were ready the first time you showed me your real ears. They watched the stars, and the stars watched back.